top 10 purest water reservoir in the world. Water is life. As proof, it goes with the fact that a man can live about a month without food, but would only live about a week without water. That is because it is the most important resource in the world, and our daily lives are incorporated with it. Of course, with the absence of water, think about how greatly affected our routines be, like drinking, bathing, washing hands, clothes, and objects, swimming, sanitation, and more. And how would laundry shops, firefighters, resorts, spa, fisheries, and hydropower plants operate without it? It is impossible because water generates life on Earth and it also regulates our planet's atmosphere. Just so you know, 90% of our world's freshwater supply is in Antarctica and 68.7% of it is trapped with glaciers. But sadly, not all people have access to clean and safe water. In fact, according to statistics, 780 million people lack in water resources, and every hour, 200 children die for drinking contaminated water. Water can also be seen on the moon in a form of ice as well as in martial soil wherein each cubic foot, you can get 2 pints of it. Since water is abundant on our planet, did you happen to ask yourself, where can we find the freshest waters in the world? It is important to know where they are, so in case of severe drought, we know where to go. If you want to know more about these, stay tuned and don't switch channels. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell on the side. Since water is life, in today's video, we will give you the countdown for the top 10 purest water reservoir in the world. Starting with our number 10 is the water in Switzerland. Besides from being well known for its alpines and beautiful sceneries, this country follows strict regulations for long years, and as a result, the water is ready and safe to drink directly from the strand without thinking of any concern. This means you don't need to rely on bottled waters or mineral water containers that can be purchased in stores. As a matter of fact, according to the latest UNESCO survey, Switzerland ranks 16th place in the quality of water management and preservation for water resources. To achieve this, since 1986, the country totally forbid the use of phosphates, a substance that can be used in fertilizer and carbonated drink with flavored syrup. It can also greatly affect the quality of water by causing an extreme growth in the algae and create an imbalance in the water ecosystem and worst, destroy other life forms. Processing on number 9 is the water in Greenland. Greenland is known as the largest island on Earth. You'll be surprised that this is where you can find one of the cleanest drinking water on our planet. But where does this water comes from? The answer is the never-melting snow that covers 80% of the area. Despite the never-melting snow, locals can depend on the water coming from the rivers and lakes. Before enterprises or watercourses discharge water to their sea, they must have a special permit that is only issued by the government. This is to regulate strictly the wastewater to preserve their bodies of water. What a responsible act from their government! Flowing on number 8 is the water in Germany. Did you know that the water in Germany tastes so good like a mineral? Because of this, food production and drinking water are some of the safest in the country. However, based on research, water consumption has decreased in recent decades. But why would they stop consuming it if it tastes good? The answer lies in the bottled waters in the supermarket. Many locals prefer to drink with bottled waters instead of the usual direct strand consumption. Before, the water consumption per day of the households are in 145 liters, but since 2010, it dropped to 121 liters. The implementation of strict wastewater treatment in Germany is very high in various regions and is strongly backed by the government to ensure that the flowing waters are clear and clean. Sparkling on number 7 is the water from Iceland. Aside from being adored by its mesmerizing sceneries, culture, and unpredictable weather, Iceland is hailed as Europe's provider of cleanest drinking water sources. If you are a tourist, feel free to drink water directly from the lake. You don't need to be scared because locals do this too. The water that flows is perfectly filtered by the volcanic sediments on the surface of the lake. How amazing! So, a natural filtration does exist. You need to invest in expensive filters at home or bring your life straw to get clean and safe water. Unlike other countries, the water in Iceland doesn't require additional chemical treatment to ensure safe consumption, thanks to the volcanic sediments. Accessing on number 6 is the water in Austria. We all know that not all people have access to clean water and that children in those countries die from drinking contaminated water. But in Austria, all residents have the privilege to access clean water in their country, and this is what it is famous for. Since they all have access to the water, does this mean some can harm it by polluting it without their notice? Worry not, because the Austrian Water Pact is responsible for monitoring the quality of the groundwater and underground water. This means that they are also closely monitoring the human activity that can deteriorate the aquatic ecosystem of the country. This act makes Austria ranks first place in preserving its environment and ecosystem. Don't you think if other countries will practice this too, we can also have access to clean water and thus saving the future generation? Gathering awards on number 5 is the water from Sweden. You know, the quality of the water is good when it is certified, just like in Sweden. The certificate from the International ISO Water Quality that was given in 2017 at the city of Stockholm proves that the water is really good. Swedish people can drink from over 95,700 lakes and underground streams. Well, the only word that can describe that is abundant. If all countries have this, 80% of water-related diseases can be prevented. Unlike other nationalities, the Swedish people do not patronize plastic drinking bottles. Instead, they treat it as a waste of money. How responsible and caring for Mother Nature. Maintaining its purity on number 4 is the water in Singapore. Aside from being one of the richest countries in Asia and boasting attractions like the Gardens by the Bay, Sentosa, Merlion, and more, Singaporeans are undoubted disciplined in terms of cleanliness and business. So, it is easy to expect that the water source in Singapore is highly maintained with the highest standard possible for a long time. The water agency in Singapore ensures that the water source in the city of Singapore is one of the world's premium quality. The residents can drink directly from the strand because the water is safe and clean. But other residents prefer to boil it before drinking, not because they are afraid of the non-existing bacteria, but because they simply believe that it tastes better. However, according to the report, it is slowly drying. But let's hope that it would get better so the people will not be limited in using water. Closely observed on number 3 is the water from Denmark. Being a model in strict wastewater treatment, you wouldn't believe that in the 1960s, Denmark reached an alarming level of water pollution. But thanks to its government who acted quickly to solve the problem, that will greatly affect the harbors and the cities. Because of this incident, they learned how important it is to monitor the most important source, which is the water. Denmark was one of the first countries in the world to establish a Ministry of the Environment that is included in the Parliament in 1971. After 40 years, Denmark was able to master the field of wastewater management and sustainability, giving the opportunity to this country to influence other countries around the world with its method. Its rules for industry wastewater are observed strictly by the highly involved government. Usually, we don't see people swimming in the ports, but because the water in Denmark is good, people in Copenhagen enjoy their dip. And one more thing, if you are dining in a restaurant and happen to ask for mineral water, they will serve you tap water. Don't complain, because it is surely clean. Because of this incident, they learned how important it is to monitor the most important source, which is water. Denmark was one of the first countries in the world to establish a ministry for the environment that is included in the parliament in 1971. After 40 years, Denmark was able to master the field of wastewater management and sustainability, giving the opportunity to this country to influence other countries around the world with its method. Its rules for industrial wastewater are observed strictly by the highly involved government. Usually, we don't see people swimming in the ports, but because the water in Denmark is good, people in Copenhagen enjoy their dip. And one more thing, if you are dining in a restaurant and happen to ask for a mineral water, they will serve you tap water. Don't complain, because it is surely clean. Naturally filtered on number 2 is the water from Canada. Did you know that the spring water in Canada is super clean, that it is 5 times less lead content than 68.7% of the frozen fresh water in the Arctic glaciers? But how can a regular-sized spring do that? According to scientists, the unique mountain system around the city has something to do with this. The water that is flowing through its several layers of soil, sand, and clay decontaminates the water, thus giving them a clean and safe drinking water source. This makes the waters of Canada one of the cleanest water sources in the world. I know you too want to take a dip and a taste of this spring water, so you may include this on your bucket list or travel goals. In the world where water is an important gem, it is nice to know that there are still pure and clean water reservoirs that can sustain the needs of mankind. From the top 10 to top 2, we have seen the collecting effort of the people and government to make sure that their water sources are safe to consume. Leading in the world is our number 1, the water in Puerto Williams in southern Chile. It is fascinating to know that in some places, you can drink straight from their lakes or rivers because it's clean. But what if we tell you that there is a place on Earth where you can get the cleanest and purest water? According to scientific study, the purest water can be found in Puerto Williams. To prove this, several water samples from water source was taken for more than 10 days to analyze and determine the quality of the water. Don't be surprised because, according to Dr. Guido Verbeck, the principal investigator and director of the UNT Laboratory of Imaging Mass Spectrometry, the study confirms that the existing water in Puerto Williams is the cleanest water ever discovered on the planet. One of a kind, right? He added that the instruments did not detect any chemical compound in the water. This can replace the discovery of the Cape Horn Biosphere Reserve, which is one of the last remaining wilderness areas in the world. During this time, there are no sites or areas of water source that will match in the cleanliness of the water in Puerto Williams. But how did this happen, and how is this possible? Well, according to Ricardo Rossi, director of the Antarctic Biocultural Conservation Program, it has something to do with the purity of the ecosystem that existed before the revolution of the industry. No matter how pure these water reservoirs are, if mankind will not be concerned about the impact of their activities, we might one day lose the 0.003% of unpolluted water in the world. With their small ways, like proper disposal and elimination of single-use plastic, we can help preserve them and avoid the approaching scarcity in clean drinking water. Have you been in these places before, or are you one of the luckiest people who live in these areas where pure and clean water source exist? Do tell us in our comment section. This has been our countdown for our top 10 purest water reservoirs in the world. Join us again next time for another entertaining and informative video. Ciao!